segment then, and we have a first query coming in from Rohan Kumar. He's saying that he wants to actually know about Panasonic Energy. He wants to enter this particular stock over the longer term. He's wondering, does it make sense to enter into Panasonic Energy, or should he look at other companies like Exide, Amar Raja or Tata Chemicals?
Hi friends.
Kunal, what's your take coming in? Does it make sense for anyone to enter Panasonic Energy, or should look at Exide, Amar Raja or Tata Chemicals instead?
Well, Cheryl, good morning. First of all, I frankly don't track Panasonic Energy, so won't be able to really comment or offer any comment on it. But onto the other options which you mentioned. So out of the three names specifically, so Exide as well as Amar Raja Battery, out of them, I specifically believe that Exide could evolve to be a much more better as well as a stronger chart. The stock has been taking resistance at this 200 level for quite some time, but I think with the recent bout of volatility, the trends creeping up for the stock, I strongly expect that Exide Industries could probably give a breakout on the more longer term kind of a time frame. Tata Chemicals as well has been looking attractive. I think last quarter or so, if I'm not wrong, the stock had corrected on the back of some disappointment on results from 800 to 675, 670 approximately, and from there on, it's now trying to get back into a repair kind of a mode. So it looks very attractive. The stock is back above that 700 plus levels, and that is now acting as a support or a floor for the stock. So even that stock looks very attractive specifically from a medium term to longer term view.
Okay, we have a question from Sangeeta, and this one's for you, Shahina. Sangeeta is wondering whether it's a good idea to enter the real estate space now, and what would be the top stock to enter in this space, considering that there has been some anecdotal evidence that as soon as there is a lifting of lockdown-like restrictions, there are people that are making inquiries, and in fact the quarter ended March was quite a good one for the real estate space, especially in the residential space. What would be your pick in the space though?
Yeah, I think there is a lot of momentum that is happening in the real estate overall segment, especially in some of the states, like for example Maharashtra, where the government had given a lot of concessions in terms of the duties, registration fees, etc., which actually saw a lot of bookings that happened, a lot of stock that some of the real estate companies, they were able to liquidate. So, and prices also have remained relatively stable. So to an extent, the whole sector is actually picking up. Also, liquidity in the sector is improving, with some of them going in for the REITs issues. And also, I think that potential for capitalizing and raising funds through the REITs is actually opening up. Some of them are doing pretty well. I would still stick with some of the larger plays where the balance sheets are strong. For example, Godrej Properties, the numbers in the fourth quarter were not very exciting, but they have a lot of funds that they have raised recently, very well capitalized balance sheet, as well as the way they are going about acquiring new properties which are available for development over the next 2 to 3 years. I think if you're a long-term investor, that offers good potential. Some of the South India plays, like for example Prestige also, I believe, offer a good investment opportunity as of now. They have done reasonably well and have good properties, good bookings, and I think they should do reasonably well going forward. Valuations also not expensive. And in the north you have DLF. I think there with REITs, the company should be well capitalized, as well as with the picking up of real estate in the northern market, which actually was a bit depressed till now. That is one stock that you could pick up from the northern market.
All right, the next query that we've actually got is from Mr. Abhishek, and he wants to know about Tata Power. He has Tata Power shares which he's purchased at 128 rupees per share. He's asking what sort of a target should he look at over the next 3 months for Tata Power. Kunal, what's your take coming in on Tata Power? What sort of target can Abhishek actually look at for this counter?
So I think it looks very attractive, over the medium to long term. I think the stock has given a strong breakout on the longer term charts. And I believe that if the stock continues to move up, in a trajectory what it's shown in the last, I think 6-8 months or 3 quarters specifically, then I believe even a target potential of 145 to 150 could not be ruled out for Tata Power. But for that, I think you also need the markets to remain quite buoyant and the markets to remain in a very strong, firm footing. So let's hope that the markets keeps on rising up and rallying up what we've seen the last few months and few quarters over the near term as well. If that happens, then I believe closer to 140, 150 levels is where it can be a potential target range for Tata Power.
All right. I do want to remind both of you, if possible, keep your answers short. We've already, I'm pretty sure that we're not going to be able to take all of the questions that we have. Let's try and take as many as we possibly can. I'm going to club the next couple of questions. Parth and Neeraj are both asking about Affle India, and this one's for you, Shahina. Parth has bought Affle India at levels of 5,189, whereas Neeraj is asking at what price he should acquire it for the long term. Should they, first of all, acquire it if they haven't, and should they hold on for the long term?
See, Affle India for the shorter term looks like there is a bit of selling that is coming in, but I think fundamentally the business is very strong. They are very strong in the digital play. If he would like to buy it as of now, he should buy it with a target of 4,900 for the medium term and keep a stop loss of 4,500.
All right, the next viewer query that we have is coming in from Santi, and this is on Forging. That particular counter, like I mentioned in the BNS and Cloud as well, is seeing a sharp up move on back of its Q4 earnings, and it's what Shanti is saying is near its lifetime highs. The stock has gained about 4 times in recent times. Also wants the recommendation on investment with risk, with reward price levels for trading, as well as investments for the longer term. Kunal, I'll come to you with this particular query on Forgings. What sort of target can one look at, and does the chart for this counter look pretty strong over the next medium to long term, if you can?
So the longer term charts are looking attractive, but the question or the worry is entry points. And I think that could be a bit tricky, because what has happened is today, with the stock up some 13-14% odd, the RSI has gone back to levels of 89-90 for Forging. So that's something on a much elevated scale in terms of an RSI. So generally, when we see these kind of RSI levels in a market which is more or less going through a more of a repair mode, we typically see cool-offs and corrections coming back into this name. So long-term wise, the breakout which the stock has shown this month is a very strong and a formidable breakout. Yes, and as the viewer said, that the stock has given returns of more than 3x, 4x in the span of last 13-14 months. But then the question of entry point could probably be be a bit tricky one. I would expect that the stock would probably come back to levels of 550, 540 range. That could be a classic entry point for a stock like Forging. So if you happen to get the stock at those kind of levels, that's what I think should be a good entry point from a longer term view.
All right, the next query for you, Kunal, is coming in from Bhargav. He's saying that he's bought about 50 shares of PNC Infra at 228 rupees per share. He wants to know whether it doesn't make sense to add this add more stocks at current market price, given that the company will be reporting its Q1 earnings fairly soon. Also wants to know what sort of a target should one look at for this particular company. If not buy at current market price, then at what level should one look at buying PNC Infra, and what sort of a target should one look at is what Bhargav is asking for PNC Infra, Kunal.
So I think the longer term charts have just broken out for PNC Infra. I think 3 or 4 months back, the stock had broken out of this band of 220 as a resistance, and the supports for the stock was close to 120 mark, which means typically that possibly stock can rally up at least 100 odd points from the breakout levels of 220. So 320 could be a potential target range in that sense. So you can look to start buying at current levels, but I believe closer to 220 should be a stop loss or a support zone for the stock. If it manages to hold on to this support, then I believe possibility of 320 for PNC Infra could be a good target range for the stock in the near term.
All right, we've got the next question coming in from Syed, and he's asking about Lakshmi Organic at the current levels. He's looking for a monthly, weekly and daily chart view. So therefore, coming to you, Kunal, on this one. Good morning. We haven't spoken yet.
Yes. So Alex, Lakshmi Organics the charts are a bit, I would say, illiquid for the stock. It's up some 0.5% or 1% if I'm not wrong today, but it's not looking that attractive, purely on the basis of the liquidity factor, etc. So I would suggest that it's better to try and shift off to some other large cap names. I think something from the cement pack, for example, Ultratech Cement looks attractive. I would suggest maybe an alternative from the auto stocks. Maruti today is looking quite buoyant, so I think that stock also looks to be on a breakout mode. Even Bajaj Auto is a stock in a similar category, so I would suggest a switch from Lakshmi Organics to some other names.
Okay, we've got Rahul Burman who's looking to take a fresh position in Greaves Cotton, and I believe this is based on fundamentals given their venture into electric vehicles or rather that technology. Shahina, coming to you on this one, would you choose to get into this? The only worry that I have is that it's too nascent to put a bet on at this juncture, wouldn't you say?
Not really. I think they have done a lot of work in the EV space. The engines that they have put in place for two-wheelers and their two-wheeler manufacturing, I think that is actually kicked off in a big way. So even though the stock has moved up from the 130 levels to 160, 162 levels, even at current levels, I don't think that it is a very big risk for the medium to longer term investor to get in. I would still look to enter because the stock is very bullish. I would enter, keep a target of about 190 to 200 rupees, keep a stop loss of about 150.
All right. The next query that we have is from Sudaresan on Brigade Enterprises. He is holding 500 shares of Brigade Enterprises, which he's purchased at 350 rupees per share. Wants to know the short-term outlook for Brigade Enterprises. Kunal, what's your take on this counter?
It's attractive. Stock is in momentum. It's done pretty well for itself over the last 13-14 months. I would suggest a hold on Brigade, and specifically from a short-term view, you can look at a target of at least 320 to 340 kind of a target range. Because of the short-term swing breakout, it could lead to at least a 7 to 11% kind of a target uptick from current levels. So that brings the stock target potentially to 320 to 340 kind of a range.
All right, we've got a viewer called SSMCA 2005. Guys, if you have a question and your handle does not contain your name, please put your name in because it sounds really weird otherwise. This viewer's got a query Shahina, on AstraZeneca at levels of 3,850 from what I can see, saying that they can hold for 3 years. Should they continue to do so?
Wow. What is the price that you say? If 370 is the price you're mentioning, I think the investor is making a lot of money. Definitely.
Right.
Yeah, I would definitely, whatever ways, I think, it is a good MNC pharmaceutical company, and I would continue holding it for the longer term. I believe there is a lot of traction coming in with domestic formulations also improving.
Shahina, the price is 3850 and the current market price is around 3,700. Okay, so the viewer is making a bit of a loss,
A loss, sorry. So I got I one digit less, so I was like shocked at the price of acquisition. But yes, whatever ways, I think the investor can continue holding it, and do not book your loss as of now because I think fundamentals are improving, and one could hold the stock with a I would say target of approximately 4,500.
Alright, the next viewer query is coming in from Sagar and he wants a technical view on Ajanta Pharma. He's saying that he's bought 500 shares at 1,175 rupees per share last year. He wants to know, does the stock have the potential to cross 2,200 levels? If not, then should I pledge these shares and move the money to somewhere else? Kunal, what should Sagar do? Ajanta Pharma, he is asking whether it can cross 2,200 rupees per share, or else what should he actually do with the holding?
So I think you can continue to hold. There is no reason to be a bit panicky about the stock. It's just that the stock is consolidating in a range. Last 3 months, it's been in a range of 1880, 1890 as a support and closer to 1980, 2000 as a resistance. So this 100-point band has been the trading range for Ajanta Pharma, but I think the longer term charts are quite okay for the stock. It's a more of a stable stock. So it's a low beta stock inherently, which is why the stock trends could be a bit slower as compared to any other high beta name. But I think potentially the stock looks attractive, and if you're ready to hold on for another 1 year approximately, then I believe possibly a breakout of this consolidation should happen for Ajanta Pharma as well.
Now, Kunal, I can almost anticipate what you're going to say here, but I'm going to ask you anyway because I think it's important to address questions like this. Jet Airways is the stock that Abhishek Ray is looking at, and there are possibly almost zero cases for a fundamental buy in this, despite the fact that the NCLT is going to look at a resolution proposal from two entities today. There are a lot of questions that are unanswered in terms of whether or not, even if a resolution does take place, the business is going to take off again. It's of course at an upper circuit today, Kunal, and this is a very volatile stock, right? What would you say in terms of how a retail investor should approach this?
Well, I think frankly, I'll probably give it a skip in terms of recommending, because there is no point looking at investing into these kind of names. I for one believe that if returns is the aspect which one is looking at, there are so many other companies, there are so many other stocks which one could be looking at purely in terms of yielding good returns from a consistent basis on a longer term charts. But I think for Jet Airways, won't offer any kind of a view and opinion. I think it's prudent enough to try and avoid these kind of names, frankly, and I think you should look at shifting onto large cap names, because these are the kind of stocks which they become more trendy and more catchy in the fag end of a bull market as such, or a bull trend as such. But then these are the ones where traders and investors, specifically retail traders, they generally get caught into. So I would advise that you should switch and shift onto a large cap name.
Alright, the next query is an email query that we've actually got from Amrut, who's writing to us from Kolhapur. He's saying that he's invested in Nestle, which he purchased at 17,100 rupees per share. He wants to know your view on the stock over the long to medium term. Shahina, what's your take coming in on Nestle India over the long and medium term? Counter looks good.
Yeah, I think for the longer term, Nestle looks like a decent bet to continue holding. We've seen some decline that came in, some consolidation because of the international negative news that hit it some time back. But I think for the Indian context, the growth is very strong, and the main contributor for revenues being the baby milk powder is doing pretty well. So I would continue holding the stock for the longer term.
Kunal, coming to you next, we've got Sandeep Surana, who's got 5 lakhs that he wants to deploy into the markets, but this is for a long-term investment over the next 5 years or so. He's shortlisted a couple of stocks, and he's looking at HDFC Life and Happiest Minds. Is this a good time to invest, or would you say that he should stagger his investments?
No, I think it's a good time to start investing, and I think he's picked up the right set of stocks, but I would advise that you diversify to at least 7 to 8 stocks, if not more. I think that should be an ample diversification for getting invested into markets, and you can pick up the leaders or the winners from the sectors per se. So I think, for example, from the PSU banking name, you can probably look at adding up to SBI. From the private sector banks, you can look at maybe an ICICI Bank, or potentially even an HDFC Bank, which looks attractive from a longer term view. HDFC Life has done extremely well on the insurance space, so that's one stock which you can keep. So yeah, I think if you can try and pick and choose the leaders, or Reliance Industries, for example, that's also one of the other stocks which you can look at from a longer term view. So if you can try and do that, and then have a 5-year kind of a time horizon, I think you can make some good amount of returns, as well as more consistency towards your portfolio.
Alright, the next query is coming in from Muthu, and he wants a view on Kaplan Point, wants to know whether it makes sense to invest in this particular company, I believe at current market price, but he's not written at what sort of a time horizon is he looking at. So I believe let's take Shahina's view on the longer term. How does actually Kaplan Point look like, Shahina, and what sort of a level should one look at if they want to really invest in this particular company?
Kaplan Point looks pretty interesting at current levels. They have got very good plans for launches in both in the US market as well as domestic. They've got good branded, a lot of OTC products. The levels, I think technically also it's looking good. The levels I would look at I could enter at current levels. I would look at a target of 730, and you can keep a stop loss of about 630.
Okay, Vivek Tyagi, Shahina, the number seems incredible, and Vivek, you're holding 1 lakh shares. No, sorry, I read this wrong. It's 1,000 shares of Tata Power's bought at levels of 129. I was wondering whether 1.3 crores invested in Tata Powers would require our help. But should he continue holding, Shahina? Say still a significant amount of shares bought.
Yeah, I think you should continue holding Tata Power. I believe there's a lot happening over there. Like for example, the Discom, the distribution business is likely to do much better, which accounts almost about a third of their revenues. And while the renewable business is slightly smaller as of now, that is targeted to a very big growth area. So I would continue holding Tata Power. I think from here also you can easily see a medium-term target of about 150. So one could hold Tata Power even currently.
All right, the next query is coming in from Rajan, and this one is for you, Kunal. He's saying that he's holding 100 shares of L&T, which he's purchased at 1,250 rupees per share. He's holding this counter since 2019. He wants to know what sort of a target should he look at over the next 12 months for L&T.
Slow mover, that's one aspect of the stock which you need to understand, that it's not a stock which will give you those flashy kind of returns on a regular basis. The stock goes into strong periods of trend, but it takes a lot of time for the stock to move up higher, even a 10 to 15% kind of a return. If you look at the average CAGR as well for L&T, it's been a very slow kind of a mover. So just keep that aspect in mind. I think the next potential target for L&T could be a breakout about that 1600, 1650 mark. So I think that could be the near-term target which you can look at. I think eventually if the stock manages to continue its uptrend and the structure of the charts, then I believe even a possibility of 1800 to 1900 on L&T could be seen over the next 2 to 3 years. So it all depends on your time frame. If you can tweak it to more on the longest term kind of a side, then I believe a possibility of 1800, 1900 kind of a range on L&T would also be something which you can look at.
Coming back to you, Kunal, on this next one, Chemcon bought at levels of 571, losing a significant amount of ground, 123 shares. Should you average at this juncture or should you switch to something else?
I think specifically for the stock, you can look to average at current levels. It's come back to a support zone as such. 440, 450 is a support for Chemcon. It's almost or exactly at the 50 moving average. So I think in that sense, you can look to average at current levels. And if your cost price comes back, say closer to 485, 495 kind of a territory, then I believe the chance for break even for you could be pretty much sooner. So I would suggest to average at current levels.
Okay, very quick view on Info Edge. Kuldeep Singh is looking to buy for the next 1 to 2 months. I think you have given a buy call in the recent past. So maybe you can tell us about that and then tell us about the high risk and low risk ideas, Kunal.
Yeah, for Info Edge, I believe that the stock looks fairly attractive, Alex, and I think yes, recently we had spoken about the stock as well, maintaining the buy call. So I maintain that buy stance on Info Edge and would look out for targets potentially closer to 5,200, given a time frame of another 3 months or so. In terms of the trading ideas, I would suggest a couple of buy calls. And the first one, which I just mentioned earlier, is a Bajaj Auto. Looks attractive on the charts. In fact, it's now gunning very close towards its all-time high levels as well. And with recent momentum in auto stocks, I think Bajaj Auto could be first in line to break past above its all-time high levels. So would suggest the Bajaj Auto for a target of 4,350, stop loss at 4,150 levels. And the second would be a Ashok Leyland. This is more of a high risk trade, but I'm expecting that the stock, which was extremely oversold just 2 or 3 trading sessions back, could now go through a process of a strong bounce from current levels. So would suggest the Ashok Leyland, target of 128, stop loss 117.
All right, those are Kunal's high risk and low risk ideas. That's Bajaj Auto as well as Ashok Leyland. Shahina, what are your high risk and low risk ideas for our viewers today?
For the high risk, I will go with CESC. The dividend payout was 45 rupees, so pretty high, good yield, attractive valuation. Price to book is less than 1 time. It's about 0.8 times. P is low, 7 times. So fundamentally, it looks attractively valued. On the business side, T&D losses are coming down. You have the distribution franchisee segment is cutting their losses. So overall, fundamentally, also it looks good for the medium to longer term. For the low risk idea, I will go with BPCL. There again, it's a dividend play. You've got 58 rupees dividend, so a very high yield at current levels of price levels. Privatization, as we have all discussed, is likely to happen in the next 6 months. You've got good high crude prices, which is likely to keep the inventory profits high, and GRMs pretty reasonably high in the coming quarter. And asset sales should actually, it is likely that you could get further dividends also. So all in all, I think it makes like a safe dividend play for the medium term, and maybe, depending on who buys out, a good long-term investment from the investment point of view.
All right, Shaina, thanks so much for sharing your views. Kunal, thank you as well for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you as always. We're slipping into a short break, and unfortunately we have to end the query segment at this point. Just a reminder, if we didn't get your query answered today, we will endeavor to do so tomorrow. I will try and address, or rather we will try and address those that did not get addressed today. So thanks so much for tuning in. We're slipping into a short break. More on the other side. Do stay tuned.
Powered by LG Air Conditioners, all in one, one in all.